The great hall of the Galactic Concord stretched across 3 kilometers of polished black stone. Thousands of alien delegates filled the curved seats that rose toward a ceiling painted with stars from 100 different worlds. This was the center of galactic civilization. This was where the powerful species decided the fate of the weak ambassador. Krelvis of the Dominion sat in his private viewing chamber above the main floor. His gray skin reflected the blue lights of his personal display screen as he reviewed files on the newest member species, humanity, 10 years ago. These creatures from a small blue planet had stumbled into faster-than-light travel 10 years ago. They had joined the Concord as the weakest species ever recorded. Krelvis found them fascinating in the way a scientist finds a dying insect fascinating. He scrolled through the data with one of his forearms. Humans required sleep. They spent almost a third of their short lives completely unconscious and helpless. Any predator could kill them during these hours of darkness. Yet somehow, they had survived on their death world long enough to reach the stars. They also formed emotional bonds with everything. Other humans, obviously, but also animals, plants, even machines. Krelvis had watched recordings of humans crying over broken robots. They attached feelings to objects that could not feel anything back. It was perhaps the strangest weakness he had ever observed. And then there was grief. When humans lost someone they cared about, they sometimes stopped functioning entirely. They could not work. They could not think. They simply sat and felt pain for weeks or months. The Dominion had eliminated such inefficient emotions from their species thousands of years ago. Krelvis could not imagine allowing feelings to control his actions. The doors to the main chamber opened, and the human delegation entered. Krelvis leaned forward with interest. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked at the front of the group. She was small by galactic standards. Her brown skin and dark hair made her nearly invisible against the black walls of the chamber. She wore a simple gray uniform with no decorations except a small blue planet symbol over her heart. Behind her walked 6 other humans. They moved together like a family rather than a political team. One of them whispered something, and another smiled. Such unprofessional behavior would never be allowed in the Dominion. The Vorthon. Empire's delegation was already waiting at the center of the chamber. The Vorthons were everything humans were not. They stood 3 meters tall on powerful legs, covered in armored scales. Their 4 eyes glowed with predatory intelligence. They had conquered 67 species in their rise to power. They feared nothing in the galaxy. High Commander Thexarn stepped forward as the humans approached. His voice boomed through the chamber's translation systems. The Vorthine Empire claims the human colonies in the Outer Reach. These territories fall within our expansion zone. You will surrender them peacefully, or we will take them by force. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Vorthians were not asking. They were announcing. Humanity had no allies, no powerful fleet, no way to resist. Ambassador Vasquez looked up at the massive Vorthan commander. She did not step back. She did not tremble. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. The colonies in the Outer Reach are home to 12 million human citizens. They have built lives there. Families, communities. We would prefer to find a diplomatic solution that respects their rights. It came in clicks and hisses and rumbles from 100 different species. The sound echoed off the walls like thunder. Diplomatic solution, right? These humans truly did not understand how the galaxy worked. High Commander Thexarn's mouth stretched into what might have been a smile. You have 1 cycle to surrender the colonies. If you do not, we will remove your citizens ourselves. The Concord will not interfere in matters of territorial expansion. This is the law. No. Krelvis watched Ambassador Vasquez carefully. He expected tears, perhaps begging. These emotional creatures surely could not face the death of millions without breaking down. But Vasquez did something strange. She smiled. It was not a defeated smile. It was not a nervous smile. It was something older and darker. Something that made Krelvis feel for just a moment like he was looking at a predator rather than prey. We understand your position, Vasquez said. We will need to consult with our government before responding. The Vorthon commander waved one massive arm in dismissal. Consult all you wish. The outcome will be the same. The human delegation turned and walked out of the chamber. They did not hurry. They did not look back. As they passed beneath Krelva's viewing chamber, he heard one of them speak to another. They have no idea what they just did. The words sent a chill through Krelvis that he could not explain. He had lived for 300 years. He had watched species rise and fall. He had seen wars that burned entire star systems. Nothing in the galaxy frightened him. So why did his hands tremble as he watched the humans leave? That night, something happened that would change galactic history forever, across every human vessel. Every colony, every outpost, and every station, a signal traveled through quantum-encrypted channels. It moved faster than light itself, reaching the farthest human settlements in seconds. The message contained only 2 words in a code. Carthage Protocol. Authorized. On Earth. President Marcus Webb sat in a bunker beneath the old city of Geneva. Around him, generals and admirals who had trained their entire lives for this moment began activating systems that the galaxy did not know existed. "Are we certain this is the path?" asked General Okonkwo, her voice steady despite the weight of the decision. President Webb looked at the reports from the Concord, the laughing delegates, the dismissive Vorthons, the complete certainty that humanity would simply surrender. "They think we are weak," he said. "They think our emotions make us easy targets. They have spent 10 years watching us and learning nothing." He pressed his hand against the authorization panel. "It is time to show them what humans do when our families are threatened." Across the galaxy, in ships disguised as cargo freighters on stations marked as research facilities, in asteroid belts classified as mining operations, humanity began to wake up. Ambassador Vasquez stood at the window of her quarters on the Concord station. She looked out at the stars and thought about her daughter back on Earth, her mother in the colonies, every human life that the Vorthines had just threatened. Her assistant approached nervously. "Ambassador, what happens now?" Vasquez did not turn from the window. "Now they learn why humans have survived everything our universe has thrown at us. Ice ages, plagues, ourselves." She finally looked at her assistant, and her eyes held something ancient and patient and absolutely unbreakable. They wanted to see human weakness. Instead, they are going to see human war. Admiral Chen Weilin stood on the bridge of the battleship Eternal Vigilance and allowed herself one small smile. She had waited 11 years for this moment. Every day of those 11 years, she had played a role. The humble human officer, the emotional soldier who cried at funerals, the weak creature that other species laughed at behind her back. The acting was finally over. "Admiral, all fleet elements report ready," said Commander Torres from his station. "The veil is lifting across all sectors." Chen nodded and looked out at the stars through the main viewport. Somewhere out there, the Vorthon Empire was preparing to invade human colonies. Somewhere out there, they believed they were attacking a defenseless species. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Humanity's plan had begun the day first contact was made. The United Earth Council had looked at the galaxy and seen the truth that others missed. The Concord was not a civilization built on cooperation. It was a civilization built on power. The strong took from the weak. The powerful crushed the helpless. Peace was simply the pause between conquests. Earth's leaders had faced a choice. They could reveal humanity's true capabilities and become a target for every empire that feared competition. Or they could hide their strength and wait for the perfect moment to reveal it. They chose to wait. For 11 years. Humanity had worn a mask. They had hidden their orbital defense platforms inside structures marked as mining stations. Anyone who scanned them saw only rock and basic equipment. The weapons systems were powered down, invisible to sensors. Waiting, they had built warships and shipyards disguised as cargo vessel factories. The great battleships of the human fleet looked like simple freighters from the outside. Their armor was hidden beneath fake hull panels. Their weapons were folded into compartments that appeared to hold grain and medical supplies. They had trained their soldiers in secret facilities on moons with crushing gravity. While other species saw humans as fragile creatures who broke easily, human marines were learning to fight in conditions that would kill Vorthans in seconds. And through it all, humanity had gathered information. Every diplomatic meeting was a chance to study potential enemies. Every trade agreement was an opportunity to map weaknesses. Every insult and joke at humanity's expense was recorded and analyzed. The galaxy thought it knew humans. The galaxy knew nothing. Admiral Chen received a communication from Earth. President Webb's face appeared on her screen. He looked tired but determined. Vorthians have rejected our warning, he said. Ambassador Vasquez gave them 72 hours to withdraw their ultimatum. Their response arrived 10 minutes ago. The screen changed to show a field of debris floating in space. At the center of the debris was the broken remains of a space station. Chen recognized it immediately. The Harmony Agricultural Station. 300 civilians, farmers, teachers, children. They destroyed it without warning, President Webb continued. No demands. No negotiation. They simply wanted to show us what happens to species that do not immediately surrender. Chen felt the old familiar fire building in her chest. Not rage. Something colder and more patient. Something that her ancestors had carried through countless wars across thousands of years. They expect us to grieve, she said. They expect us to collapse. Yes, President Webb agreed. They have studied our psychology. They know that humans feel loss deeply. They believe that killing 300 of our people will break our will to resist. Admiral Chen thought about the families on that station. The children who would never grow up. The parents who would never see their sons and daughters again. She allowed herself to feel the grief for exactly 5 seconds. Then she put it in the place where humans store their pain. The place that becomes fuel. They made a mistake, Chen said. They studied our grief. They did not study what comes after. Earth went silent. The Concorde noticed immediately. Human ambassadors stopped attending meetings. Human ships stopped responding to communications. Human colonies shut down all external broadcasts. Krelvis tried repeatedly to contact Ambassador Vasquez. He told himself it was simple curiosity. He told himself he wanted to see how humans reacted to tragedy. But some part of him knew the truth. He was afraid of what the silence meant. Finally, after 2 days, Vasquez responded to his messages. Her face appeared on his screen, and Krelvis leaned back in surprise. She did not look broken. She did not look defeated. She looked like someone who had finished crying and picked up a weapon. Ambassador Krelvis, she said, I appreciate your concern. The Concorde is troubled by humanity's silence, Krelvis said carefully. What are your intentions? Vasquez smiled again. That same smile from the chamber. The predator smile. Have you ever heard a human expression? They did not know we were seeds. Krelvis felt his 4 hearts beat faster. I do not understand. You will. Vasquez paused, and her smile faded into something harder. The Vorthan Empire killed 300 of our people. Children. They thought this would make us surrender. Instead, they united every human in the galaxy behind a single purpose. And what purpose is that? Vasquez looked directly into the camera, and Krelvis felt like she was looking through the screen into his soul. When humans grieve, we do not become weak. We become patient. We become focused. Every tear we shed turns into fuel for what comes next. She leaned closer. The Vorthians wanted to see human emotion. They are about to learn that human emotion is the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. The communication ended. Krelva sat in darkness for a long time, trying to understand what he had just witnessed. Across the galaxy, the veil was lifting. Mining stations began powering weapons that could crack planets. Cargo ships revealed armor and guns designed to fight battleships. Research facilities activated shield generators that even the Dominion had not developed yet, and in the shadows of 1,000 asteroid belts, the true human fleet began to move. Ships that no one had ever seen. Ships built specifically to fight the enemies that humanity had been studying for 11 years. Admiral Chen Weilin looked at her. Tactical display, and saw the Vorthan invasion fleet gathering at the edge of human space. 400 warships. the pride of the Vorthan Empire. They still think this will be easy, Commander Torres said quietly. Chen shook her head. No. They still think this will be a war. She turned to face her crew. Men and women who had trained in secret, who had waited in silence, who had let the galaxy laugh at them while they sharpened their knives. What they are about to experience, Admiral Chen said, is a reckoning. The human fleet began its advance, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Vorthan War fleet arrived at the colony world of New Helsinki expecting surrender ceremonies. High Commander Dexarn stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conqueror's Wrath, and waited for the human leaders to beg for mercy. Instead, he found ghosts. Commander, the colony is empty, reported his sensor officer, confusion evident in his voice. All settlements show 0 life signs. The entire population has ... vanished. Dexarn's 4 eyes narrowed. Impossible. 12 million humans lived on this world. Where did they go? Unknown, Commander. Our scouts detect no evacuation ships, no refugee convoys. The humans simply are not here. The High Commander felt something unfamiliar crawl up his spine. In 60 years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. Populations fled in panic. Populations surrendered in fear. Populations did not simply disappear like morning mist. He opened communications with the rest of his fleet. All ships report status of other human colonies. One by one, the reports came in. Every colony was empty. Every settlement abandoned. Billions of humans had vanished in less than 48 hours, and the mighty Vorthan fleet had detected nothing. How? Dexarn demanded. How did they move so many people without our sensors seeing them? No one had an answer. Then the stars began to move. Commander. The sensor officer's voice cracked with terror. Multiple contacts emerging from everywhere? The main view screen filled with impossible images. Asteroids that the Vorthons had passed without concern were splitting open like eggs. From inside them came weapons platforms the size of small moons. Their surfaces bristled with gun emplacements and missile launchers that powered up with a sound like thunder. Cargo. Freighters that had been drifting peacefully in shipping lanes were shedding their outer hulls. Beneath the false skin lay warships with armor 5 meters thick and weapons designed specifically to destroy Vorthan vessels. Research. Stations that had been marked as harmless scientific outposts activated shield. Generators that created bubbles of force, strong enough to stop plasma bombardment. It's impossible, Dexarn whispered. This cannot be real. But it was real. And it was just the beginning. A communication signal cut through all frequencies. Admiral Chen Wayland's face appeared on every screen in the Vorthan fleet. High Commander Dexarne, she said, her voice calm and cold. I am Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You are currently surrounded by 1,200 human warships. Your fleet is outnumbered 3 to 1. Dexarn stared at the screen in disbelief. 1,000. That is not possible. Our intelligence said humanity had fewer than 200 combat vessels. Your intelligence was what we wanted it to be. Admiral Chen allowed herself a small smile. For 11 years, we have shown the galaxy exactly what we wanted the galaxy to see. Weak ships. Emotional soldiers. A species that was not worth considering as a threat. Her smile faded. You believed the mask? That was your first mistake? The Vorthon commander tried to regain his composure. You may have hidden your numbers, human, but the Vorthon Empire has conquered 67 species. Your tricks will not. Your second mistake, Chen continued, ignoring his words, was killing 300 of our people on Harmony Station. You thought human grief would paralyze us? Instead, you united us. She leaned forward. Every human in the galaxy is now watching this moment. Farmers who never held a weapon are demanding to fight. Scientists are volunteering for combat duty. Elderly people are coming out of retirement to serve. You did not break us, High Commander. You woke us up. Darned. Felt the fear spreading through his bridge crew. He could smell it in the air. These humans were not behaving like any species he had ever conquered. They were not panicking. They were not desperate. They were patient and cold and absolutely certain of victory. "What do you want?" he asked, hating how weak his voice sounded. "Unconditional surrender," Admiral Chen replied. "You will power down your weapons. You will shut down your engines. You will submit to human custody until the Galactic Concord can arrange formal proceedings." Her eyes hardened. "You have 1 hour to comply." "This is not a negotiation." The communication ended. The Xern stood in silence as his officers waited for orders. Commander said, "His weapons, officer? We should attack now, while they are still talking. Perhaps we can break through their lines and look at them," Xern interrupted. He pointed at the tactical display showing the human fleet. The ships were arranged in perfect formations that covered every possible escape route. They had positioned themselves at distances that maximized their weapon effectiveness while minimizing Vorthin targeting solutions. This is not a blockade they created in desperation. They have been planning this for years, maybe decades. He thought about the human ambassador and her strange smile. The silence after the attack on Harmony Station, the impossible evacuation of billions of people without detection. Humanity had not been weak. Humanity had been waiting. Every emotional display, every moment of apparent vulnerability had been theater. While the galaxy laughed at their tears, humans had been building an empire killer in the shadows. "We have faced 67 species," Xern said quietly. Not one of them thought to hide their strength. Not one of them had the patience to wait for the perfect moment. Not one of them studied us while pretending to be harmless. He looked at his officers with something new in his eyes, respect and fear. "We are not facing a weak species that got lucky. We are facing predators who let us think they were prey." In the observation deck of the Concord station, Krelvis watched the tactical feed with growing horror. He had lived for 300 years. He had seen the rise and fall of empires. He had believed that the Dominion understood power better than any species in the galaxy. He had been wrong. The humans had not just prepared for war. They had prepared for this specific war against this specific enemy. Every ship, every weapon, every tactic had been designed with Vorthon weaknesses in mind. It was like watching someone solve a puzzle that everyone else had declared possible. Krelvis opened a channel to the Dominion homeworld. His superiors needed to know immediately. Every assumption they had made about humanity was wrong. Every plan they had considered involving Earth was now worthless. The humans were not weak. They had never been weak, and now the entire galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened the families of creatures who had survived extinction events. Through pure stubborn determination. "Hi, Commander." Xern looked at the timer counting down on his screen. 50 minutes until the human deadline. His fleet was surrounded. His advantages had vanished. His pride demanded that he fight, but for the first time in his life, he wondered if surrender might be the wiser choice. The hour began to run out. And across the galaxy, billions of beings held their breath, waiting to see what humanity would do next. The hour ended. High Commander Xern did not surrender. His pride would not allow submission to a species that had been classified as weak for a decade. His soldiers would never follow a leader who knelt before creatures they had mocked. The Vorthin Empire had never surrendered in its entire history. That history was about to end. Admiral Chen received the Vorthin response and felt no surprise. She had studied their culture for 11 years. She knew they would choose death over dishonor. She had planned for exactly this moment. "All ships execute Pattern Omega," she commanded. "Show them what humanity does when you threaten our people." Followed was not a battle. It was a lesson. The Vorthin fleet used traditional formation tactics. Their ships moved in predictable patterns developed over centuries of conquest. These patterns had defeated 67 species. They were considered perfect by every military analyst in the galaxy. Human vessels moved like nothing the Vorthins had ever seen. They broke into small groups that attacked from multiple angles simultaneously. They retreated when the Vorthons pressed forward, then struck at the flanks when the enemy extended their lines. They never stayed still long enough to be targeted. "They are not fighting like a fleet," one Vorthin officer reported in confusion. "They are fighting like wolves." He was more correct than he knew. Human military strategists had studied every predator species on Earth. They had combined the patience of crocodiles with the coordination of wolf packs. They had added the ambush tactics of tigers and the swarming behavior of piranha. Every battle plan was built on millions of years of evolutionary warfare. The Vorthan. Ships began to fall, but the true terror came when human ground forces deployed. A Vorthan landing party had managed to reach a moon where they believed human civilians were hiding. 500 Vorthon soldiers in heavy armor touched down near an abandoned mining facility. They moved confidently through the low gravity, expecting easy targets. They found human Marines waiting for them. Sergeant Maria Santos had spent 6 years training on this exact moon. She knew every rock, every crater, every shadow. She had practiced fighting in this gravity until it felt like home. The Vorthans stumbled and struggled in the unfamiliar conditions. Her team moved like ghosts. The first Vorthon patrol disappeared without a sound. One moment they were reporting normal conditions. The next, they were gone. The Vorthon commander sent a second patrol to investigate. They vanished too. What is happening? The commander demanded over communications. How are humans defeating armored soldiers? The answer came from the darkness in the form of a human voice. It was Sergeant Santos, speaking through a captured Vorthan radio. You want to know our secret? We do not fight fair. We have never fought fair. Every war in human history was won by the side that was more creative, more determined, and more willing to adapt. You brought 500 soldiers to fight us on a moon? We have been preparing to fight you on this moon for 6 years. The Vorthan forces tried to retreat. They found their landing craft destroyed. They tried to call for support. They found their communications jammed. They tried to form defensive positions. They found themselves attacked from angles they did not know existed. Sergeant Santos led her team of 40 Marines against 500 Vorthons. By the end of the day, only 60 Vorthans survived. They surrendered on their knees, unable to comprehend what had happened. The stories from that moon spread across the galaxy within hours. Humans fought in ways that defied prediction. They used weapons designed specifically to penetrate Vorthon armor. They attacked at night when Vorthan eyes struggled to see. They flooded areas with smoke that blocked thermal sensors. They played human music at deafening volumes too. Disrupt Vorthan communication, frequencies. And then there were the stories about human endurance. A squad of Marines was cut off from reinforcement during fighting on a space station. 12 soldiers against 200 Vorthons. Standard military doctrine said they should surrender or die quickly. They held their position for 19 hours when relief forces finally reached them. They found Corporal James Odiambo still standing at the barricade. His armor was destroyed. His weapon was empty. 3 of his ribs were broken, and his left arm hung uselessly at his side. But he was still fighting with a metal pipe. He had torn from the wall. The medic said his body should have stopped functioning hours earlier. The blood loss alone should have killed him. But something in human biology, something connected to what they called adrenaline and willpower, had kept him moving. His body had simply refused to accept defeat. How? Asked a Vorthon prisoner who witnessed the scene. How does a creature keep fighting when its body is destroyed? The medic treating Corporello Diambo looked at the alien with exhaustion and pride in her eyes. Because he had brothers behind that barricade. Because giving up meant letting his family die. Humans can endure anything when we are protecting the people we love. In the observation chambers of the Concorde, delegates from 100 species watched the battle unfold. They had expected a quick Vorthan victory. They had expected to watch humanity beg for mercy. Instead, they watched the third most powerful empire in the galaxy come apart like paper. Krelvis studied the tactical data with growing understanding. He finally saw what humanity had been hiding all along. Their sleep was not weakness. While they slept, their subconscious minds processed information and solved problems. Human commanders were having breakthrough ideas in their dreams. Their emotional bonds were not weakness. Those bonds created units that fought as single organisms, each member willing to die for the others. Vorthon soldiers fought for glory. Human soldiers fought for each other. Their grief was not weakness. Human rage after the destruction of Harmony Station had provided motivation that no military training could match. Every soldier in the human fleet carried the memory of 300 dead. Civilians like fuel in their hearts. The Vorthons broke on the third day of combat. "Hi, Commander." Thexorn stood on a bridge filled with smoke and dying crew members. His fleet of 400 ships had been reduced to 97. Most of those were damaged beyond repair. His soldiers on the ground were surrendering in groups. His support lines were cut. His allies in the Concorde had gone silent. A communication request appeared on his damaged screen. Admiral Chin's face looked back at him with neither hatred nor triumph, just patient certainty. "Hi, Commander," she said. "Your fleet is defeated. Your invasion has failed. The colonies you threatened are safe. The civilians you murdered on Harmony Station have been avenged." She paused. "I offer you one final chance to surrender. Accept, and your surviving soldiers will be treated with dignity. Refuse, and I will destroy what remains of your fleet. The choice is yours." Thexon looked around at the destruction. He thought about the empire he had served, the species he had conquered, the arrogance that had led him to believe humans were prey. He had been wrong about everything. "I surrender," he said. The words tasted like ash in his mouth. The Vorthon Empire surrenders. Across the galaxy, humans allowed themselves to celebrate. They had won. They had protected their families. They had shown the universe that kindness did not mean weakness. And they had only just begun. 6 weeks after the surrender, the galaxy gathered to witness something it had never seen before. A human trial for war crimes. The Treaty of Europa was signed in a chamber built specifically for this moment. It floated in orbit above Jupiter's frozen moon. It's constructed from materials donated by 12 different species who wanted to participate in history. Through its transparent walls, the ancient storms of Jupiter swirled in endless chaos. A reminder that even the mightiest forces could be survived by those patient enough to endure. "Hi, Commander." Thexarn stood before a panel of judges representing 30 species. The Vorthon, who had threatened human colonies, who had ordered the destruction of Harmony Station, who had laughed at human weakness, now faced human justice, but not human revenge. The galaxy had expected executions. Every species that had ever won a war celebrated by killing its enemies. The Vorthons themselves had executed the leaders of all 67 species they conquered. Blood for blood. Death for death. This was how civilizations had operated for 10,000 years. Humanity chose a different path. "Hi, Commander Thexarn," said Chief Justice Amanda Eulerin, her voice carrying through translation systems to every corner of the galaxy. "You have been found guilty of ordering the attack on Harmony Agricultural Station. 300 human civilians died because of your command. Among them were 94 children." The chamber was silent. Thexon waited for the death sentence. "Your punishment is as follows. You will serve as an observer in human civilian communities for 5 years. You will learn the names of those who died on Harmony Station. You will visit their families. You will see the lives they lived and understand what your order destroyed." Justice Eulerin leaned forward. "You will not be executed. Hi, Commander. You will be educated." Confusion rippled through the watching delegates. This was not how wars ended. This was not how victors treated the defeated. What were humans doing? Ambassador Vasquez rose to address the assembly. She wore the same simple gray uniform she had worn when the Vorthons first threatened humanity. The same blue planet symbol rested over her heart. But something in her eyes was different now. Softer, sadder, wiser. "The Galactic Concorde has watched us for 10 years, she began. "You measured us by your standards. You saw that we required sleep, and you called it weakness. But sleep is when humans dream. It is when we imagine futures worth fighting for. Every great human achievement started as a dream in a sleeping mind." She walked slowly across the chamber, and every eye followed her. "You saw that we experienced grief, and you called it fragility. But grief is how we remember why we fight. The tears we shed for Harmony Station did not make us weak. They reminded us that every life matters, that protecting innocent people is worth any sacrifice." She stopped in front of the Vorthon delegation. They would not meet her eyes. You saw our bonds with each other, and you called us soft. But those bonds mean we never fight alone. When you threatened 12 million humans in the colonies, you did not face 12 million individuals. You faced one family, billions of brothers and sisters who would burn the stars themselves to protect each other. Vasquez turned to face the entire assembly. Her voice rose with quiet power. Humanity does not seek empire. We do not wish to dominate the galaxy. We have seen what happens when species measure greatness by how many others they can crush. We have seen it in our own history, and we chose long ago to be better. She paused, letting her words settle like snow on silent ground. But we will never again be underestimated. The mask we wore for 10 years is gone. The galaxy now knows what humanity can do when threatened. So let me be clear about what comes next. Every delegate in the chamber leaned forward. Any species that attacks human civilians will face the same response the Vorthons faced. Any empire that threatens human colonies will discover that our patience has limits. We showed you our strength because we had no choice. We would rather have shown you our kindness. Ambassador Vasquez smiled. And this time, it was genuine, warm. The smile of someone who had been through fire and found something precious on the other side. We are offering the galaxy a choice. You can continue as you have for 10,000 years. Conquest and fear. Power and domination. That path leads only to endless war. She gestured toward the window. Where Jupiter's storms raged in eternal fury, you can try something new. Cooperation, trade, friendship. We have resources and technology we are willing to share. We have solutions to problems that have plagued the Concord for centuries. We have dreams of a galaxy where species work together instead of destroying each other. Her voice dropped. Becoming intimate despite the thousands listening? Humans are not powerful because we've conquered our emotions. We are powerful because we embrace them. Love made us stronger. Hope gave us patience. Grief taught us what matters. These things you call weaknesses are the source of everything we are. She looked directly at Krelvis, the Dominion ambassador who had watched humanity with such fascination, who had studied their files and laughed at their tears. He wondered why humans form bonds with creatures that cannot love us back. It is because we believe that love given freely makes the universe better, regardless of whether it is returned. You wondered why we feel grief so deeply? It is because we believe every life has infinite value. You wondered why we sleep and dream. It is because we believe tomorrow can always be better than today. Vasquez walked back to the human delegation. Her people stood together, shoulder to shoulder, generals who had won impossible victories, scientists who had built impossible weapons, civilians who had evacuated entire planets without detection, all of them united by something stronger than fear or duty, family. The humans of Earth extend our hand to the galaxy, she concluded. Take it, and we will build something new together. Refuse it, and we will defend ourselves against any threat. But know this, our hand will always be extended. Our hope will never die, because that is what humans do. We endure, we adapt, we survive, and we never ever stop dreaming of better days. The chamber erupted in applause. Not from every delegation. The Vorthons sat in shamed silence. Several aggressive empires glared with undisguised hostility, but dozens of species who had never spoken to humans before were suddenly requesting diplomatic meetings. After the ceremony, Krelvis found himself walking beside Ambassador Vasquez in a quiet corridor. Jupiter hung enormous in the windows, its ancient storms beautiful beyond description. Your speech will change things, he said. Some will fear you more than before. Others will see opportunity. Vasquez nodded. We know. We planned for both reactions. Of course you did. Krelvis made a sound that might have been a laugh. I have studied your species for a decade. I thought I understood you. I understood nothing. No one understands another species completely, Vasquez replied. But you can try. That is what we are asking the galaxy to do. Try to understand us. Let us try to understand you. Perhaps we will discover that we have more in common than anyone believed. She stopped and looked. Up at the giant planet outside the window, humans almost destroyed ourselves many times, wars, plagues, environmental collapse. Every time we survived because someone reached out across the divide and said, maybe there is another way. Maybe we do not have to be enemies. She turned to face Krelvis directly. For the first time, he saw past her diplomat mask to the person beneath. A tired woman who had spent 10 years preparing for a war she hoped would never come. Who had watched 300 people die and used her grief to save millions more. The galaxy mocked our weakness, she said softly. Now, it fears our strength. But what we really want is for someone to see our hope. That is the truly human quality. Not tears or dreams or stubborn endurance. Hope, the belief that sentient beings can do better. She extended her hand, a human gesture of greeting, of peace, of new beginnings. Krelvis looked at her hand for a long moment. He thought about his species, their cold logic, their efficient cruelty, their absolute certainty that emotions were primitive obstacles to be eliminated. For the first time in 300 years, he wondered if they had evolved in the wrong direction. Slowly, carefully, he reached out with one of his forearms and took her hand. It was a small gesture. One human and one alien standing in a corridor, shaking hands while a giant planet turned behind them. But it was a beginning, and humans had always been very good at beginnings. Outside the station, stars burned in eternal silence. They had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. They had watched species conquer and die and disappear into dust. Now they watched something new. A small blue planet's children. Reaching out to the universe with open hands and stubborn hearts, the galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere, in the depths of human dreams, tomorrow was already taking shape.